What is up, fam? It is your boy Sunil. Thank you for tapping into So Real Sports Talk. I have my main man, this direction, Mr. Casey Passier. How you doing tonight, sir?
Good, man. Good. Just dodging thunderstorms up here in Wisconsin.
Yo, that's why you guys all are built different out there, man. You guys all got the Hercules bodies is because you're always dodging bad weather. So I believe it, man. So Casey, we're here. If you're here, that means we're talking fantasy football, my friend. And today is one of the more fun episodes because we are talking about the most glamorous position in football, the quarterbacks. So we're going to go over the top 12 quarterbacks, or like you like to say, QB1s for our fantasy teams. So just to start off, though, let's go over just QB strategy as a whole for you. You know, obviously the QB's the most important position in football, but in your estimation, is this the most important position of your fantasy team?
No,
Okay.
it's definitely not. Especially if we're talking standard leagues or one quarterback leagues, these redraft leagues. Um, Literally, I rank QBs just ahead of defenses and kickers if you're even playing those.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So tell us why you're kind of low on quarterbacks overall.
sure. So it's kind of a strategy I think that the footballers have talked about a little bit, and that one of my brothers and I, when we play redraft, we literally will not draft a quarterback until the last pick or two, just because there is always quarterback injuries and there is always quarterbacks off the waiver wire that you could stream. So instead of wasting draft picks on a quarterback earlier in the draft, you can come out with some other players that are going to probably score you more points. Unless you're in a scoring system that's a little bit wonky that lets those quarterbacks score a lot more, um, and unless you're in Superflex. If you're in a Superflex league, then it's a bit different, and you want to stack up on those quarterbacks. But in redraft, my brother and I have had some pretty good success, and I know a lot of people have success with just waiting on the quarterbacks and not drafting them so late, because you're going to be able to pick up Ryan Fitzpatrick, probably Cam Newton, maybe a little bit, maybe not Cam Newton quite yet, but Ryan Fitzpatrick, you're going to be able to pick up off the waiver wire. Tyrod Taylor, you're going to be able to get guys like that are going to play this year. Yeah. You're not going to have to pay anything for them.
Yeah, Pinor says Darnold is the steal this year. I'll acquire all the OWs. So we're definitely going to get into that, Pinor, as far as steals and late round draft picks. But that's interesting, man, because definitely I think that, at least for me, there's about 3 or 4 quarterbacks that I feel are worthwhile to pick high. But if you don't get those, like maybe 5, but if you don't get one of those like top 5 quarterbacks, I think that I'm a lot like you. You're going to find more elite guys in your like tier 2, tier 3 rankings of running back, receiver, tight end that can help you more and give you more depth, and then find, quarterbacks that are later rounds that are going to get you just as many points as the guys that you could get after those top 4 or 5. So let's break it down, man. Let's start backwards. So we'll go 10 through 12. Let's list them and then we'll talk about them. So who is in your 10 to 12?
You want me to go 10, 11, 12 or 12?
Yeah, let's go 12, 11, 10. Let's go backwards.
Okay. So I have Joe Burrow at quarterback 12.
Okay.
Quarterback 11, Ryan Tannehill. And quarterback 10, Russell Wilson.
Wow. Okay. So already a big wow. Okay. He's starting early today. Casey's bringing out the wows real early. So let's go Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow at 12. So clearly Joe Burrow was on track to have a really breakout season last year, till the devastating injury. So I know one of your strategies is you don't necessarily take under consideration injuries unless there's like a severe one that you're really worried about. However, in Joe Burrow's situation, it was a pretty devastating injury. Obviously, people have come back from ACLs, but they don't really look the best that next season. It's usually 2 years after they start to feel comfortable with it. Cincinnati hasn't done much with that offensive line, but they did bring in Jamar Chase, which is supposed to be a weapon, even though, obviously training camp isn't looking so hot for him right now. But tell us a little bit why you put Joe Burrow there at 12 over maybe some other established quarterbacks that I'm sure you left off your list.
Yeah, so there's this tendency, just especially in fantasy, where you watch it happen, where these second-year or third-year quarterbacks just erupt, and they outperform all of these veterans that we talked about. And I don't know, they're bringing this college ball to the NFL in a way, and they've surrounded Joe with Jamar Chase, like you said, T. Higgins from the year before. Tyler Boyd is their wide receiver 3. Just 2.5 years ago, Tyler Boyd was their wide receiver 1, and now he's third on the depth chart. So they put some pass catchers around Joe Burrow, and I really like the Zach Taylor offense moving forward. I think Joe Mixon has a big year. And maybe we're all just hoping for this in the dynasty community because it's happened year after year after year, but everybody is waiting for Joe Mixon to just have not an RB1 season, but to be the RB1. And with this offense, with the offensive line and the way it is right now, like you talked about, it might be an opportune time for him to do that because he has to be catching a lot of balls. And as far as Joe Burrow's knee is concerned, I don't think the knee is necessarily going to give out on him. He's had enough time. As long as he can keep him upright or relatively upright, he should be able to get through the season. But you're right, it is going to take him a year or two to get to full steam. But I just think that there's too many weapons around him. And Tyler Boyd as a wide receiver 3 on that team is just kind of mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, and the thing about Joe Burrow is he seems to have the mentality of that's different. Like, he's an alpha for sure. He's been, and he's been kind of, I think, underrated in the sense, like, when he is underrated or as far as like doubted, I think that's when he elevates his game. So this is definitely one of those situations. Absolutely. We saw that with LSU, and definitely, coming in as the 1 pick, he played well, like I said, up until that injury. So number 11 is Ryan Tannehill. So I'd be surprised, before you go through it, if you recall, how high did you have Ryan Tannehill on your list last season? Was he about the same position, higher, lower?
I probably had him hovering around the outside, probably at 15, 16, middle of the pack.
Okay. So this is kind of higher for you, and I'm assuming a lot of that has to do with Julio Jones coming in. Yeah,
a bit of it does. I'm also we talked about this in the first episode too. Like, I like to cheer for these guys. You especially fantasy, you find guys that you like and you want them to play well. You want them to move forward, and winning a championship or winning games with these guys on your fantasy team that you like is just a little bit more fun. Sometimes the rankings are like that too. But I think Ryan Tannehill is just a baller. He played quarterback in high school. He got to college at Texas A&M. Most everybody knows that he played wide receiver up until the last year and a half, and then he went back to quarterback because they kind of needed it, and he was good enough.
Right.
Getting away from Ryan Gase in Miami and getting into Tennessee has been the best thing for that guy's career. You brought it up. The Julio addition is going to help them. It gives them another elite pass catcher, and I think Derrick Henry takes a little bit of a step back. Their offensive line isn't as strong as it used to be, and he has had back-to-back 350 plus carry seasons.
Right.
It's not that they've worn the tread on the tires all the way down, and it's not that the wheels are going to fall off of him. He's a monster. He's a literal monster on the field. But I think that he's going to take a little bit of a step back in production, and they're going to need to throw the ball around a little bit more. I don't think their defense is going to be as good as it has been in the past. It might lead to more shootouts or higher scoring games than what we're used to in Tennessee.
Yeah, I think a lot of Ryan Tannehill detractors put a lot of emphasis on what happened in Miami. And I think, like you said, Adam Gase has shown to be a quarterback killer because wherever he goes, a highly touted quarterback tends to fizzle out, and and we saw it with Sam Darnold. We'll see. Pinor obviously is high on Darnold. What he'll do over there with Carolina, but I think Ryan Tannehill definitely is an undervalued quarterback in the sense that he is somebody who puts up pretty consistent numbers. And now that he has another weapon there, I think that's going to be great for him. However, the only thing that I think he might be kind of similar is because they also lost Jonnu, who he threw a lot of touchdowns to last season, and Corey Davis obviously had a big season. So I don't know if it's necessarily like, I think they kind of just like replaced with Julio Jones the production that they got out of Jonnu and Corey Davis. So I don't know if we're gonna see a big jump from Tannehill. I think on paper it obviously sounds like it with obviously Brown and Jones there, but we'll see. I mean, I think he's going to be solid. I think this is one of those guys that you could find maybe in like the 10th round, or that'll still be around after all of the big names are picked, because I think people just undervalue him. Yeah, and I think that I think that he could still compete and get you 20 to 25 points a week, which is pretty consistent with what most quarterbacks are getting outside of the top 3 or 4 that we're talking about that are going to get you those 30 points and above consistently. So I like Tannehill there. Go ahead.
Yeah, if I remember right, I think Jonnu's a lot of his scoring came in the first part of the season, because in the second half he was lining up as H-back and a little bit more. He was injured. I think that was maybe it was a little bit more towards the middle of the season. Either way, but he definitely played more H-back and almost fullback roles for Tennessee last year. He did score touchdowns, but I think Julio can be that guy. He wasn't necessarily in Atlanta. It was always a weird anomaly. He wasn't the guy catching touchdowns in Atlanta, but in Tennessee, he can definitely be that guy.
Right. Tannehill, Pinor thinks Tannehill will be licked, but I'm pretty sure he meant picked before Darnold. Otherwise, I would consider him. That'd be interesting, because I think people are really down on Darnold, obviously. So Darnold is somebody that's going to be there later, but we're going to get into our steals a little bit later. So number 10 is interesting because a lot of people put Russell in their top 5 when it comes to fantasy quarterbacks, because he gives you that dual threat option. But obviously, you're moving him way down as one of the bottom tier QB1. So explain to us why you feel that way.
It has more to do with the other quarterbacks that are out there and available. A lot of these teams, I think, are just going to put up some bonkers numbers. It's going to be pretty crazy. And the Seahawks are still searching for that third target, that third wide receiver, third pass catcher, whoever it may be. And Chris Carson is relatively good out of the backfield. I think he's a pretty pleasant surprise for that team to be catching the ball. But they don't like to use the running backs that way. They'd rather use the running back between the tackles and use them that way, and use wide receivers in the passing game the way that they're kind of designed to. We've got 2 great pass catchers, and Dwayne Eskridge, I think, just got nicked up a little bit in camp. He's supposed to be their wide receiver 3. So I don't know who's going to be the third target there. And when we're talking about some of these other offenses, brought it up with Joe Burrow. You've got 3 wide receivers plus a running back. If you have those 3 to 4 guys that you can spread the ball around to, I think that's who you're going to be targeting with these, or that's who you're going to see finishing in the top 12 as QB1s, is these teams that have more than one pass catcher, or more than 2 or 3. Or it's going to be a quarterback that runs the ball quite a bit that can get you points on the ground.
So even though Russ has that ability, you still don't bank that that's going to put him over the hump as far as these other quarterbacks that you think might have more weapons?
Sure. He has that ability, but they do not want him scrambling like he used to. He used to run all over the place and, width-wise, back and forth across the field before you get the ball out of there. We don't see that from Russell Wilson much anymore. He doesn't scramble I don't think he scrambles nearly as much as Aaron Rodgers will scramble, and he doesn't score those rushing touchdowns anymore.
I think he scrambles to throw the ball. He's not scrambling to get yards anymore. He's just like running side to side to find an open man. I think that, they picked up Garrett Everett. I think his first name is Garrett, but maybe it's Gerald Everett.
Gerald,
yeah, Gerald Everett, the tight end from the Rams, who is a pretty athletic tight end. They needed a tight end, so I assume he'd fit into that third option for them. Just because even though he's listed as a tight end, he's known more for his pass catching and athleticism than being like a blocking tight end type of play thing.
And I like him a lot too. But he would have to be. That wasn't even somebody who brought up in the tight end 12s or 15s. Maybe we brought him up with the ones that missed it a little bit. And I like that guy too. I like his athleticism too. And it wouldn't shock me if he ended up being a tight end 1 or ended up being a huge part of Russell Wilson's QB1 season. But I haven't quite seen it yet. And especially with tight ends, I'm going to wait until I see it.
Right. And, going off of the last few years with Seattle tight ends, they haven't been major players in fantasy. So I could see that as well. But let's move on. We got our first interesting pick, right? So I think Russ is going to go off the board way higher than 10th overall as far as QB. So that means that some of these guys that you're drafting higher, you could probably find in lower rounds, which is, obviously the value. So let's go 9 through 7, and then we'll talk about it.
All right, 9 through 7, I've got Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, and Aaron Rodgers.
Okay. So we're going with the senior citizens,
the old guys,
the old guys, right? So
geriatric,
AARP alley right now. So Tom Brady comes in at 9. Now, going off of your previous kind of like what you're talking about as far as quarterbacks that you rank high is the number of weapons they have. That is not an issue for Tom Brady, right? He has 3 wide receivers that could be wide receiver 1s, plus, a couple of tight ends that could all be, could be tight end 1s. And then, with the running backs, has some guys that could catch the ball out of the backfield. He obviously had a huge season last season, coming off of a Super Bowl. Yet you have him pretty close to, we're talking about, 10th round as far as, where he's coming off. So tell me a little bit about why you have Tom Brady so low, even though he kind of fits your criteria for why you would pick a quarterback higher.
Yeah. Well, once we get up into the next, we've just named off these 3 guys, or I've named them off, and then the 6 that are after that, I don't know how you put any of these bottom 12 guys. Russell Wilson, I understand those arguments still, but I don't know how you put the bottom half of this list of mine, these bottom 6, how any of them could tap into the top 6. I think the top 6 quarterbacks that we have are just phenomenal. And these are the ones that I would want in all of my dynasty teams. And to be honest, going into redraft, they're just old enough now that I want them in all of the redraft leagues too. But talking about Tom Brady, he's got all the weapons, like you said. They're returning 22 starters. Everybody on offense and defense. Never been done before. And this team I think they were the wild card team last year in the playoffs. They've been through the thick stuff, and they know how to kind of stick together. So I don't think that there's any reason to think the team's going to fall off. He's got enough weapons, but they spread the ball around enough, and I think we're going to see them lean on the running game a little bit more this year. Whether that's to get some trade value out of Rojo, whether that's to take some pressure off of some people. The run game, I think, is going to be a major part of Tampa Bay's offense. Leonard Fournette's still there. Ronald Jones is there. And I think Keyshawn Vaughn actually is going to step up and play a good pass-catching role. So that's why I like him right there. I just think that they repeat a season very close to last year, which everybody's going to hate to hear, or everybody's going to love to hear now. Now, he's not a Patriot. People don't mind cheering for Tom Brady outside of New England. So, but I think it's going to be a repeat of last year. And I want to say he was a QB 10, 11, something like that in most leagues.
Yeah, so his name is probably bigger than his fantasy value, but this is another guy that you could probably get pretty late in the fantasy draft, and that'll get you pretty solid points, or at least not be a reason why you lose your head-to-head matchups.
And that's why I like some of these guys right here in the bottom half of my list: the Tannehill, Burrow, Brady, even Matthew Stafford coming up. Although I think cat's out of the bag on Stafford, but a lot of these guys you're going to be able to draft later on, and you're going to get better value than the spot.
Quick shout out to Kid Low. What's up, Casey and Sunil? Hope your days are going excellent. They definitely are, Kid Low. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today.
Thank you, Kid.
So number 8, Matthew Stafford. Now, Stafford's interesting, right? Because he's moving to a new team. Obviously, we know what the Rams and Sean McVay's offense are capable of, and they haven't had a quarterback like Matthew Stafford. I think most of us agree that he's a big upgrade over Jared Goff. He's going to have some weapons. Now, losing Cam Akers, I think, is going to be a big blow to their running game. Obviously, Henderson's still there, who played adequately last year, but their offense really was kind of humming when they had Cam Akers, and losing him for the season is going to be tough, especially for fantasy teams. I would hate to have him in your dynasty draft, and he's just gone for the season. But tell us what you expect out of Matthew Stafford this season.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of brought it up that the Rams and McVay haven't had a quarterback like this around, in a while, and Matthew Stafford has never had a coach or an organization behind him like this ever in his career either.
Right.
So it's kind of a perfect wedding, and I think they're about to explode. I was really hyped about him before training camps and everything started up, and with the Cam injury, I like him even more. He might have been off of my top 12 or, just on the outside here. But with Cam gone, I think they're going to air it out. Darrell Henderson can still be used in the passing game. We'll have to see about a couple of these rookies like Xavier Jones and whatnot. But I'm excited for him. Robert Woods is a perennial wide receiver one that everybody sleeps on. And I'm sorry I forgot about him in our wide receiver talks. It wasn't, he's just he's that guy that creeps up on you and should be talked about. And Cooper Kupp is kind of the same guy, same mold, plays a different way, but they're going to give you the same production. And now I'm forgetting the name of their rookie wide receiver they just got. Well, they have Van Jefferson from last year. Dang it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I try not to know too much about the Rams because I'm a huge 49er fan, so they're like the arch nemesis. But they are obviously a scary team. Sean McVay knows what he's doing when it comes to offense. And, they got an upgrade at quarterback. I expect, Matthew Stafford was a pretty viable fantasy quarterback even with Detroit, with, him really not having too many assets there outside of, Kenny Galladay and, every now and then he had a running back that would play well, but I expect him to have a pretty decent season. And once again, this is somebody that you could probably get low in a draft and still get high value out of him, mixed with the other players you were able to get. So I like that. And then at number 7, Aaron Rodgers. Now, I might have to disagree with you on this just because Aaron Rodgers with the chip on his shoulder is a different beast. He obviously is. It looks like this is going to be his last season with Green Bay. You probably know more than most being tapped in and that being your team and you being in that area. But tell us why, Aaron Rodgers didn't make your top 6, knowing what you know as far as him coming off of MVP season, him getting Randall Cobb, his main man right there as well. Obviously, Devontae Adams and his last year on the deal, he wants to have big numbers. They got a good tight end there in Tonyan. So tell us why you have him at 7 instead of higher.
Yeah, without sounding repetitive, it has a lot to do with the top 6. I think the top 6 are just gonna go bananas. And I'm not so sure that the things are all going to be copacetic this year in Green Bay. It's not to say that there'll be a huge falling out and, he sits half a season or anything like that. But there were some inconsistencies that that have been there in Green Bay in the past, and they can pop up here and there. That offensive line, while very good when they're kept together, is very brittle at times. And there was a couple of years where Green Bay players had a hard time getting over injuries and they couldn't get them back on the field. So there's some interesting things there in Green Bay. The Randall Cobb thing, to kind of patch things over with Aaron Rodgers was fun, but I don't think that's going to help them in a real efficient way, other than getting a guy that kind of helps Amari Rodgers along. Although everything out of camp and everything that I've heard about Amari Rodgers before that was that he's like a coach. He is a coach's kid, and he loves the game, and he's a student of the game. So I don't think that guy was going to have any problems there here in Green Bay anyway. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about Aaron Rodgers anymore. But there was a period of time where I was kind of out and didn't care about what was happening. But then this year, like, you really won me over with some of the things that you say. And my brother says this too, who is not an Aaron Rodgers fan. That you kind of won people over with the way that he handled Jordan Love and the way that he handled the season. And, they're there in the NFC Championship game. And it was great. And then this offseason happens, and I don't know, just put a bad taste in people's mouth again. And I don't even think it's even a fault of his or a fault of Green Bay's. Sometimes these things just happen within organizations and players. But I can't put him in the top 6, knowing these other guys that are out there. But I still think he's going to be relatively productive, and I think people are going to overpay for him.
Yeah, I mean, in some of the drafts that I've done already, he's pretty much fallen, and he's right there. I think listed where you have him listed at about 6 or 7. I've seen him, and I've seen him kind of being going in like those same rounds, like round 7 or so. Obviously the guys, and I think he's going to be a great value pick because, much like you said, I think there's these top 6 quarterbacks that I'm sure you're about to list that I think people are they'll go on a run with. Once one of them comes off the board, they'll start like kind of picking these guys. And I think you could get Rodgers after you get your starting lineup with receivers, running backs, tight end. He could be that, quarterback that you end up picking after you filled all those positions. And I still think he's going to have a pretty productive fantasy year just because of the weapons he has. And let's be honest, they haven't done too much to defense where they're not going to have to win games by him just outscoring the opponent. So I think that's going to be a pretty prolific offense still, especially with him wanting to probably move on after this season. So I think that's a big value pick, but we shall move on, my friend. The top 6. So let's go 6, 5, and 4. Who do you got?
All right. 6, I have Lamar Jackson.
Ooh.
5, I have Dak Prescott.
Okay.
And 4, I have Justin Herbert.
Interesting. So you have Herbert and Dak over Lamar. All right.
I do.
Okay. So Lamar obviously is a beast because he could get you points in the air and he could get you points on the ground. So tell us why he's 6, because I think this is probably much lower than most of fantasy boards have him. So why do you have him so low?
Sure. I think he finished right around here, maybe 7 or 8 last year at the end of the year. And arguably that's a down year for him, especially after putting up like the QB1 seasons or MVP seasons and stuff like that. I think there's some people that are expecting this big jump from Lamar, kind of like Josh Allen, where completion percentage is just going to go through the roof. Greg Roman's there. He's going to figure it out with him and Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews, and everything's going to be copacetic. But I think it takes a little bit longer for Lamar. Not to say that he can't do it. I think he's on track to become a pretty proficient passer. And they did surround him with weapons. Bateman's injury seems to be, well, depending on who you talk to, seems to be a couple of weeks. 5 weeks, I think I heard. He might be available for the season opener. Mm-hmm. So that hurts them. But they did draft Tylan Wallace out of Oklahoma State, who's a little bit faster of a wide receiver, but he's a big dude, and he can high point balls. And He's going to be a good deep threat for them, which they kind of need. Marquise Brown hasn't turned out to be that guy. He might just be too small. But I like Lamar Jackson a lot. I just think his progression back to that is going to be a little bit slower. I think that the rushing stats and the rushing points that you used to get from him, you're not going to get that much anymore. I think they're going to lean a little bit more heavily on J.K. Dobbins, and J.K. Dobbins is a great check down guy for Lamar as well. I just think that they might rein him in a little bit more so that they can turn him a little bit more into a prototypical passer that will do the Russell Wilson thing. We'll use his legs to open up new avenues, new lanes to be able to throw the ball or escape pressure, but wanting to throw the ball being his first priority.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mr. Mangold.
They're also getting Ronnie Stanley back. Ronnie Stanley was back on the field.
Yeah. Lamar, former MVP. They got Sammy Watkins over there too, who I feel like is gonna help out. Definitely with the wide receiver.
Although I heard somebody say that if Sammy Watkins couldn't pull off being the wide receiver 2 in Kansas City, how's he going to be wide receiver 1 in Baltimore?
We shall see. So number 5, you have Dak.
Yep.
So Dak is interesting as well. Coming off a season-ending injury, somebody who does use mobility, not necessarily to gain, rushing yards, but definitely to move around in the pocket, to be able to throw down the field, has a ton of weapons, one of the best receiving cores in the league, has a beast of a running back. You have him very high. So tell us why he's top 5 in your book.
Yeah, I think this is one of the highest powered offenses that we have in the NFL right now. All 3 wide receivers are essentially wide receiver 1s everywhere they go. Gallup could probably be a wide receiver 1 on half the teams in the NFL right now. And that's pretty wild. Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz proved to both be competent tight ends, so it doesn't matter who gets hurt or who stays healthy there. And Tony Pollard is probably the best backup running back in the league. I think this team is poised to score a lot of points. I wouldn't be surprised if this team is in the Super Bowl this year. I think that they have
what?
Kind of expectations.
Hold on, wait a minute. Time out.
I'm not predicting anything. I'm just saying with this offense, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yo, that's wild.
I hate saying that as a Packer fan. You're gonna hate hearing that as a 49er fan.
I don't think they're even better than the Washington football team to get out of the NFC East, my man. But but I digress. It's not about the team; it's about the quarterback. So, look, Dak before he went down was throwing up crazy numbers for fantasy. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they were getting blown out of games. So it had to go back down to him just throwing the ball and getting, ridiculous yards in garbage time pretty much just to catch up when the defenses are playing prevent and so on and so forth. They have made a few acquisitions through the draft on their defensive side that, hopefully will make that defense a little bit better. But if you're a fantasy guy and you have Dak, you want that defense to be porous because that gives him more opportunity to slang the ball down the field. The less you can use Ezekiel Elliott running the ball, the better it is for Dak and his fantasy numbers. So, for me, Dak is interesting because I tend to try to stay away from quarterbacks that are coming off of season-ending injuries. I just think that it takes more than 1 year to get, through that. I think there's a mental aspect to it of being afraid of using that ankle or getting hit the wrong way or whatever, even though that was just a ridiculously freak injury. But, for me, I think 5 is probably where most people have him ranked, at least in that 4 to 6 range. I think he's going to go high, and it's kind of like boom or bust with Dak. He could be pretty great if he goes back to his old ways, but he could also be somebody who mentally just isn't back yet, and we haven't really seen him. I mean, that coach over there is somebody who's kind of like for most people. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But I like who you picked at 4, Justin Herbert. This guy was the waiver wire king last season because nobody expected him to play, and then when he did play, he was getting you consistently 2 touchdowns a game.
Yeah.
Obviously, this time around, he's not going to be a secret. He's already coming off of people's boards as like the 4th quarterback off of the board. So tell us why you have him at 4, listed higher than Dak and Lamar.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, I will not own any of these guys in any of my redraft leagues. I won't be drafting them as high as they're going. It doesn't mean they don't deserve it, but like, I'm just not going to play that. I'm not going to play that value game. I even wanted to put Justin Herbert higher. Like I had the urge to put him into the top 2 or 3. And I just had to hold back a little bit. I had to rein in my dynasty thoughts and save that till next year. We can talk about Justin Herbert in the top 3. Because this offense could just absolutely explode. Austin Eckler stays healthy most of the season. And the Mike Williams eruption that we might be expecting. I think this offense could be doing great. They also drafted Rashawn Slater and basically solidified the left side of their line. They brought in Corey Linsley, the best free agent center on the market. They have done everything that, and I think I heard this on another podcast. I don't know who it was. I can't reference it right now. But they basically did what the New York Giants should have done through the draft the last few years.
Right.
New York Giants had the opportunity to draft Justin Herbert, and they didn't. They went with, I think they went with a tackle last year. And then they had the opportunity to get Rashawn Slater this year, and they traded out of it, and then they drafted Kadarius Toney. So literally we could be talking about the New York Giants with both Rashawn Slater and Justin Herbert on their team.
Right.
And that'd be pretty nuts too. But I love this offense. I love the direction that this whole team is going. I need to get a share of Justin Herbert in one of my leagues so that I can buy a jersey because their uniform update was amazing too.
Right.
I'm a kind of a uni guy. I love apparel. But yeah, I just think that this guy and this team is poised. Not this year, probably a lot of points being scored this year, but I think they're poised to make a Super Bowl run and be competitive in the AFC West in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and you didn't even bring up Keenan Allen, who could be, a top 5 wide receiver this year. He's looking phenomenal in training camp and, one of the best route runners in the game right now. And they picked up, Jared Cook, who I think is still a very serviceable tight end, pass catching tight end, played really well in New Orleans. And even though, a little long in the tooth, still, with the right quarterback can do wonders over there. So, I'm really high on Herbert. I haven't seen him really come off the board. I've actually gotten him pretty as the 6th quarterback off the board in some of these because people are rating Dak and Lamar, I think, higher than him. But I agree with you. I think he's higher than those two.
I had him there for a minute.
Yeah.
That's funny. I had him there for a minute, and I was like, wait, I have to move him up. And I got him up to 4, and then I was like, I could put him even higher.
Yeah.
But I did have him below Dak and Lamar at one point.
Because here's the thing. He is obviously well known for his arm. He has a cannon, and people were worried about his accuracy, and he's shown not being an issue. He's sneaky, though, because he's getting you yards on the ground, too. He is a very mobile, big quarterback, and, he's going to, if it's goal line and there's 1 yard out, I wouldn't be surprised him running it in there and being kind of like what what Big Ben used to do back in the day and stuff like that. So I see him. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just gonna say Justin Herbert, and then there's 2 other quarterbacks I got to talk about still that have this Andrew Luck thing about them, where they can throw, they can make every throw on the field, and they can score 5-yard rushing touchdowns. So that's something that Justin Herbert has that some of these other quarterbacks don't. Even Jack kind of has that, where he's going to throw, they're going to throw 40 touchdowns this year, and he might rush for 5. And that's a lot of points.
Right. So let's get into it. Let's get into your top 3. go ahead and list 3, 2, 1, and then we'll talk about them.
Cool. So I jockeyed these two guys around a little bit, but I settled on Josh Allen at 3, Kyler Murray at 2, and Patrick Mahomes at 1.
Nice. So
yeah,
Josh Allen at 3, and you're picking at hairs. I think I'm interested in Kyler Murray because I think he's pretty high on your list, but compared to some of these other guys. But let's talk about Josh Allen. What do you see out of him this year? And what do you expect out of him for fantasy?
Yeah, I think that the jump last year was just amazing, and it was great to see him actually do that. Not anybody expected him to be able to do that. I think he's leveling out a little bit because he's not going to progress that much again. It's statistically impossible for him to do that. So just leveling him out a little bit. He's still in my top 3, and I love that they added Emmanuel Sanders last year or this offseason.
He's a big pickup.
I think he's a perfect wide receiver 2 for that offense. And then we talked about a little bit during the 10 episode. I love Dawson Knox. If this ain't the year, then there isn't going to be one.
Right.
So I want to see that happen. I want to see these 3 targets really help Josh Allen. The running game,
it's really suspect.
I'm not sold on those 2. Yeah. There's some guys that love Moss and there's Singletary guys from the year before, but none of those guys really, jumped out and grabbed me. So I'm thinking Josh Allen's they're gonna air it out again this year and let him drive the boat. Next year they might pick up a nice running back to actually put in the stable, but I think a quarterback 3 season is nothing to frown at. And
and I'm
not gonna own any Josh Allen either.
Yeah, I mean, he could end up being the best quarterback out of this bunch too. His relationship with Diggs is, pretty special. And I think they're going to be airing the ball out a lot in Buffalo. I think the division got better. I think New England's going to be better. Miami's better. Jets are the Jets. We'll see. I don't know if they're going to really be able in contention for another few years, but yeah, I mean, Josh Allen, you got to put him there. He's somebody that's a dual threat. He's going to get you some touchdowns rushing, at goal line, and he's going to get you a lot of yards through the air. So I like him at 3. Tell us why Kyler Murray is so high on yours, because I think most people look at Kyler Murray as more of like the running quarterback. You got the jersey representing.
Because I own him, that's why.
Losing Larry Fitzgerald may or may not be effective. I mean, they got AJ Green there. Obviously, to me, they have the best wide receiver in the league in Hopkins, who obviously is going to get you, 1,200 yards in this season and probably more now with the 17-game season. But you got him as your second best quarterback. Why is he so high in your eyes?
I love the way that this guy can throw the ball. I mean, he's a natural thrower of the football. The baseball background obviously helps out with that. This is his 3rd year, right? So I think we're expecting the 3rd year breakout. That's when most rookie quarterbacks that are going to ascend, that actually happens in the 3rd year. The 2nd year has been the anomaly for those couple of years with Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. But Josh Allen last year was 3rd year. Kyler Murray's 3rd year this year. And with the same system. He's been working with Cliff Kingsbury. Nuke is there now. You said they brought in AJ Green, which I think is just a Larry replacement. It's keeping some veterans on the field and an extra coach on the sideline essentially. But I love the Rondale Moore pickup. I think that he's going to take over Christian Kirk's position. If it hasn't happened already, it's going to happen within the first few weeks because this kid is explosive. I remember watching him. I just happened to turn it on. It was his first football game, a Thursday night game, Purdue, and the guy erupted for over 200 yards. Well, no, it wasn't 200 yards. I want to say it was like 400 all-purpose yards that game. He was passing, or he was catching the ball. He was rushing the ball on sweeps on the backfield and returning things. I think he's a difference maker, and it's something that I have down here that I don't kind of predict this thing that often, but I think that Arizona might be able to be competitive enough. They have Chandler Jones still there, and they brought in J.J. Watt, so I like their defense enough that I think they can be competitive. I could see Arizona making a trade for a tight end partway through the season, somebody that needs to get out of somewhere, or they just go snooping around. So if somebody like David Njoku or Mike Gesicki went to Arizona, man, and I'm trying not to bake that into my ranking.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Kyler that much. That's just something I kind of tagged on at the end because I think this team can be competitive. And if they get a tight end in there too that can catch the ball on a consistent basis, wheels up for Kyler, I think.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, he once again is in the same division as my favorite team, so I have a hard time being too high on Kyler, but he is he's
I
a really good
forget you're a 49er fan. I get it all the time.
Yeah, so he he is obviously a good quarterback. Great for fantasy. If you have him on your team, you definitely aren't. There's not too many quarterbacks, if any quarterbacks, that are going to consistently beat you on a night-to-night basis if Kyler Murray is your quarterback. So, yeah, everything you listed is accurate. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
I thought you were going to move on. I was just going to say one little quick dynasty tidbit. I traded Lamar Jackson for Kyler Murray and a second-round pick the year after Lamar's MVP.
Wow. So, hey, not doing too bad on that one. Yeah, not doing.
No, and it's something I believed in, and it's not that I just happened to have Lamar at such a great value, and he exploded, and I was going to cash out on that, and it's not to say I don't like Lamar Jackson, and I don't want anybody to get that twisted because I think he's a great kid, and I think he's exciting to watch. I think he's doing cool things in Baltimore. People are giving him a real hard time about running routes or playing basketball with these kids, and I was like, I mean, you understand what that meant to those kids, or what that would mean to somebody like me to have somebody like that show up and give you some time out of their day. So I like that guy a lot, and my dynasty rankings or where I trade him has nothing to do with how I actually feel about that guy. Just to be clear.
It's all business. It's all just fantasy business.
Yeah. It's all about championships, rings, trophies, money.
And obviously at 1, you got Patrick Mahomes, I'm assuming, unless Trevor Lawrence jumped in there for you, but I'm assuming it's Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, it was close. Yeah, and it's 3 weeks in a row of picking the Kansas City Chief within these position groups and just putting him at the top. Number 1 offense. He is the number 1 quarterback. I actually, spoiled that the first 2 weeks saying that.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen any type of regression from Patrick Mahomes, and you're probably not, barring some crazy injury. You're not going to see the game plan change much. In fact, I think you're going to see. I think you're going to see them do a lot more of what they're really good at. I like Mecole Hardman as their second wide receiver. I think he's better than Sammy Watkins stepping into that role there. And they have Colin Powell out of Clemson. He's a little bit older rookie. I think he was in Clemson for 5 seasons.
Yeah.
But he's a big ball guy too. Big play guy is kind of what I meant. He's a little bit more of a body. And they're refilling these wide receivers like you would refill a magazine and a gun. They're just ready to go.
Right. And everybody gets a shot there. Everybody gets the ball out there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think, is going to be a screen machine. Because that's one thing that Andy Reid utilized a lot in Philly that he hasn't really made like the staple with Kansas City quite yet.
Yeah. And I think they missed out on that last year.
Yeah. And so, I think that's pretty arguable that Patrick Mahomes is going to be the number 1. Most drafts that I've been in so far, he's coming off the board as the number 1 QB, and usually in the second round, third round. So, I think
he's the number 1 overall pick in dynasty startups. Like if you're starting, and it's super flex. If you're starting, and most are right, or it's becoming kind of the norm or the standard. And he's the number one pick. I mean, pretty much. Some people are picking Christian McCaffrey here and there, but if you're taking it serious, you're taking Patrick Mahomes with the 101, or you're trading out of it for a value if somebody else really wants him that bad. But he's the best player in the game right now.
Got it. Kid Low wanted me to throw a shot at you. Tell Casey we're tired of beating the Packers in the playoffs, and by we, he means the 49ers.
Yes. Yeah.
So I like the list. Now, let's go after some late round steals, right? So we're talking about quarterbacks that we could get late that are going to be productive, or more importantly, especially with the way quarterbacks go down in injury, what are some great like backup quarterback positions that you could get, later in rounds? Who are some guys that you're looking at?
Sure. I like guys like Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I kind of brought them up already. Mm-hmm. These are probably the guys in redraft leagues that I'll be targeting really, really late, towards the very end of the draft, or at the very end of the draft. I think
Sam Darnold is another one. Yeah. Sam Darnold.
Yeah, Darnold is really interesting to me because, this is finally the first year away from New York, but second year finally removed from Adam Gase. No, well, year and a half, whatever. And I think the weapons that he has in Carolina, their third wide receiver is going to be Terrace Marshall, and that guy would have started on like 99% of all college teams last year. He would have been the wide receiver one everywhere else except for LSU, because of all the other guys there. So I like Darnold a lot. I think Baker Mayfield is ready for kind of one of these eruptions, kind of like Josh Allen had. He's a little more flighty or a little bit more of a head case, so I can't put him into a top 12 or anything like that. But
and they're obviously a run-first team. They're a run-first team, so but he's very accurate, and OBJ's coming back, so that's obviously going to be more points.
I think so.
Kid Low asked, I was starting to buy the Jameis stock, but with no Michael Thomas, I'm selling it. What do you think about Jameis? Obviously that's a high-powered offense as well. He had really big touchdown numbers with Tampa Bay before he left that organization. Obviously throws a lot of interceptions as well. Is that somebody that you'd pick up in these late rounds as well?
Well, I agree with Kid Low. Like, now that Michael Thomas's injury is going to take him out for part of the season, like I'm totally flip-flopping too. I might do what the Saints end up doing and grabbing Taysom Hill and using him instead. The running ability of quarterbacks, like that's why Jalen Hurts is on here too. They might not make the playoffs. He might not throw 3 touchdowns in a game, but he's going to have some yards on the ground, and that always helps.
And my last question for you, Casey, there's a lot of rookie quarterbacks that came out in this draft. Are there any of the rookies that you would take a flyer on?
Did you set me up for this one?
No, I did not.
We didn't even talk about this, so you're just giving me a nice, like, easy alley-oop. Yeah, this is my man. I've been waiting on this guy.
You already got the jersey. That is amazing.
Yeah. So the first year that we started playing Dynasty football was actually the first year that I watched Rondale Moore go off. Uh-huh. And then Trevor Lawrence, that was the same year that he took over partway through the season for Kelly Bryant and won his first national championship. And I was like, well, if I'm playing Dynasty and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, then I know that I have to get that guy on my team. And I did everything that I could for 3 years to make sure that I had the first overall draft pick for the draft that happened this year. And I took him and I drafted him I bought the jersey 2 weeks later. It took him a while for the jersey to get to me. It's a whole other story. But I'm stoked about this guy. I'm not thrilled about Urban Meyer, but the first year with Trevor Lawrence, I think Trevor Lawrence is he's going to be a competent enough kid that Urban Meyer isn't going to ruin him. Right. Urban Meyer might ruin Urban Meyer's own first couple of years of coaching or all of his NFL chances at ever coaching again. But I don't think he's going to ruin Trevor Lawrence. The stuff coming out of camp is already great. I think he threw 5 touchdowns in a row today in red zone drills. The videos of him connecting with some of these wide receivers too. I'm a big Laviska Shenault fan. He kind of has that Deebo Samuel build run after catch ability, but he's built like a bigger dude. He's I don't know, 30 pounds heavier than Deebo and maybe 2 inches taller. I like that guy a lot. Sounds like Marvin Jones is becoming a go-to pass catcher for Trevor Lawrence as well. So,
and they're going to have a lot of drop downs to Etienne. I think is going to get a lot of yak, on some of those screens and stuff. But I think Trevor Lawrence is good. But I think his team has a while to go before that offense becomes prolific. I'm really interested in a guy like Justin Fields or Trey Lance. If Trey Lance starts, which I am trying so hard to get that out into the universe because I think he should be the week 1 starter, and I assume that's going to happen. I think
Twitter's confusing.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
Oh, is that how Twitter works?
That meme, right?
Yep.
So, I think Trey Lance is in the best situation out of any rookie quarterback when he does play. He has obviously all the receivers that you talk about, the type of receivers you like. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuels, he has both of them, plus George Kittle, plus a high-powered running game. So, and he also is that dual-threat quarterback. And from everything in training camp, they're using him a lot in option. So if he's somebody that I wouldn't mind stacking and just leaving him in my leaving me in my subs just in case he does start, because he's somebody that could skyrocket up and be one of these top 5 quarterbacks for fantasy just based off of what he's capable of doing. And I think Justin Fields is another person, right, that has that dual threat ability, has a chip on his shoulder, is a proven leader. I mean, him and Lawrence were 1A, 1B, in
from
college.
High school on.
Yeah. So, he's kind of just, I don't know why, like he just kind of fell off the map during the draft. People were just so down on him. And I think for no reason.
You only give me one rookie quarterback to talk about. You only give me one. You get to talk about 2. And I only have one.
Absolutely. It's my show, bro. I get to do whatever I get to do whatever I want to do, bro. It's called So Real Sports Talk. My name is So Real Sunil. Of course I get to talk about as many as I want. But I want to know, Casey, what you think about all these rookie quarterbacks, and would you take them, and where would you take them on your team?
No, I mean, you brought it up earlier too with the Justin Herbert, the Justin Herbert trajectory or the situation that happened last year. If you're drafting Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, or Trey Lance as your second quarterback in a redraft league, and you just sit them there, you could. There's multiple universes in which those guys are starting and winning you championships. You're playing them in the playoffs and winning your fantasy championships with these rookie quarterbacks. It happened with Justin Herbert. It happened with Lamar when he finally played, Patrick when he finally played. And these 3 are talented enough that it could be something that explosive. So you're not going to waste any draft capital. I mean, you're going to draft Justin Fields or your third tight end.
Right. Makes a lot of sense, man. Makes a lot of sense. That's great. Anything else that you wanted to talk about? Any jerseys that you were throwing out? I know you got all your.
No.
It seems like most people got like the cards with bullet points. You got jerseys there to remind you who you need to talk about next.
Who I need to talk about next. Yeah. And coffee mugs. Make sure that I remember Justin Herbert or that I bump him up. No, I think that's.
Do you think Casey loves football? Do you think Casey loves football, man?
Yeah, it's a blast. And after when we started doing the Dynasty fantasy football thing, hardcore, and I used to be a 2 or 3 league guy, and now it seems like every year I add 2 or 3 leagues. I don't get rid of any. I just keep adding more. But adding best ball leagues and adding redraft leagues that you just have fun with friends is kind of it's the most exciting like firework way to play. But
Yeah.
if you want to start a big bonfire and sit around it and watch it burn all night and have a hot dog and a s'more and have a drink around the fire, that's what Dynasty Fantasy Football is. And it just kind of it reinvigorated the love for the game that I have because Dynasty it actually requires you to pay attention to college, and if not pay attention, you have to pay attention during the draft process. But and also like breaking down film. I love getting on YouTube now and finding all 22 film and watching these guys every play. Um, they'll have and there's lots of websites that do this now too. So they'll break down and they'll have all of Trevor Lawrence's plays that he runs in this game, and the good plays and the bad plays. So you're not just seeing highlights; you're seeing every single mistake or every hiccup and the the in between stuff too. Um, I don't know. It's just made me love the game in a way that I used to. It makes me feel like I'm participating in a fun way. Dynasty and the fantasy community on Twitter is pretty fun. They're just like every other community on Twitter, though, so let's not get it twisted.
Right.
They get a little dramatic, and they get a little crazy, and sometimes too hot takey, or stay away from my hot takeys. But yeah, it's a blast, and to be able to interact with friends and family, and to
it reconnected us,
watch
man.
football and have fun with it again.
It reconnected us. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I love it. I love it. Well, for those guys that still haven't followed Casey on Twitter, his Twitter handle is right there. You could talk more fantasy with him.
But be careful.
Yeah, be careful, man. He is spicy. But if you want to just talk about fantasy football, I'm sure he'll be down for it. But yeah, man, great show. Next week we're going over running backs, and that's going to be fun. We'll probably do a longer list with running backs because obviously most leagues have 2 of them. So we might just do tiers
pretty quick.
Yeah, we might do tiers. We might do something, but stay tuned.
And we can hate on zero RB theory.
I love it, guys. Have a beautiful night. I'm going to be jumping on around 7:30 in about an hour with Runa. If you guys want to learn about cricket, jump on the show with us. Till then, you guys have a beautiful night.